Hello and welcome to On the Slab Horror. I'm here on my own. As you can see, none of the hosts are with me. That's because they've reached out to some of their previous guests and they've asked us to give them a top 5 list of horrors. The boys gave me Disney Plus to go with, which I wasn't too sure about because I didn't realize how many horrors are actually on Disney Plus. So before I get into it, there's just a few quick honorable mentions. Ravenous, which the King would not be happy I'm leaving off, but I've just left off because it's not one of the bigger ones for me. The Sixth Sense, which, I'm leaving off just because it's not as rewatchable because of the big twist at the end of it. Ready or Not, which was mentioned by Dan Grogan, which is why I've left it off, otherwise I would include it. And then two kind of more kid-friendly ones, Hocus Pocus and Muppets Haunted Mansion. We might come back and revisit them at some other point if we're doing a more kid-friendly list. But for the moment, I'm going to go with this list in no order. First up, I'm going to go with The Fly. What can be said about this? Jeff Goldblum in a horror film. Just Jeff Goldblum in anything, really, to be honest. So in this horror film, he just works so well as this kind of mad scientist, I suppose. And the premise is just that he creates this teleporting... It's meant to be a teleporting machine, but what it really is kind of a cloning machine. It clones you and kind of gets rid of the original version, and you become the new version. And it comes out with awful consequences. As you can guess, a fly is involved. So if you just... The Simpsons kind of did a parody on this, to be fair. So I guess a lot of people will understand he basically starts to turn into a fly. Not to give anything else away about the film, but that is the main premise of the film. Next up would be 28 Days Later. There's obviously the sequel to it, 28 Weeks Later. Not to be confused with 28 Weeks Slater, which is AC Slater from Saved by the Bells, short little collection that I believe is on YouTube. Not to be confused with that. This is very, very different. This one is a zombie film, but it doesn't focus on the zombies in the way that a lot of other zombie films do. This one more relies on the shock, horror, the uncertainty that humans would feel if a situation like this did arise, and it shows the good and bad of humans as well, like relationships building, relationships falling apart, sacrifice, and everything like that in between. So really good watch. A little slow, so if you're the kind of person who really just likes action, this probably isn't for you. But as always is mentioned on here, atmosphere is a big thing, and this is something this film really relies on, is the atmosphere. So I've put it in here because I really, really enjoyed it, and atmosphere is a big thing for On the Slab, so felt it deserved its spot in there. Next up, I'm going to go with a very new film, only released this year. Disney Plus really knocked it out of the park with this one. The lads have covered this on a previous episode, but fresh is this one here. A very interesting concept for a film. Without giving too much away, it's a very charismatic and endearing man capturing women. Luring them back, I suppose, more than capturing. And he has cannibalistic tendencies. So a very, very good film. Not the sort of thing you would expect from Disney Plus to be, or from Disney to be creating, but this was really, really good. I think all of us really enjoyed it when we watched it. So I wanted to include that because it was released this year, just to make sure that anyone who hasn't seen it before checks it out. Next up, I'm going to go with one of the big two, I suppose, that are on Disney Plus. These are probably two of the biggest. They're more franchises, but I'm just going to pick one. For the first one, I kind of flip-flop between these, and it's Alien or Aliens, which could be Aliens. Aliens is obviously Alien 2, just to make it a little bit more confusing rather than doing it that way, because then they went on to call them 3 and things like that. But I'm going to go with Alien over Aliens. Aliens is the more sci-fi impact one. It's less horror based and more action thriller. than Alien. That's why I've gone with Alien here. I flip flop on which one of these two I prefer. Anytime I watch them, whichever one I watch gets the recency bias of being my favorite one. But I'm gonna go with Alien for the moment because it's the bigger horror one. Just the idea of being trapped up in space and this alien species just absolutely going through everyone that you're trapped up there with. Just really done well. You don't get many films like this, and there's probably a reason that I think a lot of people don't want to try and do something like this, because they are just going to be compared to this film, and it's a very hard one to be compared to, because even now it still stands the test of time so well. And then lastly is another big favorite for this show. We covered the newer version, Prey, which I'm not going to include this time. You can check out the previous episode with me and the three hosts previously, where we discussed Prey in detail. I made my point there that I'm uncertain if Prey is better or Predator is better. The boys, I think, are all on the Predator side, and I'm the only one kind of flip-flopping between the two of them. But I'm going to go with Predator here because we've done a full episode on Prey very recently. What a classic. If you love your 80s kind of action, this is what this is, but with a horror twist. So you get your Arnie moments, your one-liners, your big beefy men killing each other and killing what's around them. It's just a classic 80s action film, but they've turned it into a horror by having something that's invisible be able to hunt them. I'm not going to say it's a spoiler, because if you haven't watched it by now, that's really your own problem. But just the way that they've created this beast that came down and he hunts the most dangerous animal on the planet, which is obviously human. But he is more technologically advanced, so he can go invisible. And then obviously Arnie has to work out a way to get around that, which he does. So always great to watch Arnie in those old 80s action films, and to have a horror twist on it is just a big bonus for me. So let me know if there's any films you think should have been mentioned, or if you prefer Aliens over Alien or Prey over Predator. Let us know in the comments below, and until next week, as the boys always say, stay scared.